And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 128. That is Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. So as you can tell by the title of this podcast, this is all about the Winter Classic, kind of a preview of the Winter Classic and the event, which is, again, back at Fenway, January 2nd. Bruins-Penguins, which is a pretty good matchup, I got to say, for the Winter Classic. Bruins-Penguins, I know there's fatigue of the Bruins and outdoor games. This is the Bruins' fifth outdoor game, correct? Because there was the 2010 Winter Classic, 2016, 2019, and Lake Tahoe, which people forget about a lot, I feel like, because nobody was there. But low-key might have been the best outdoor game.
Might have been the best one. I mean, you had beautiful scenery. You had a great game. You had Pasternak hat trick. You had Dusty Gooch. What else?
Dusty Gooch, I was going to say. That's all you need. You had they wore the 90s apparel. And remember, Bergeron had his Walkman.
Yep.
And you know what? I know the league wants to make money and revenue, and I completely understand that. They want fans to be there. But I think if you can have a scenic game or two every year at a Lake Tahoe, or pick another really nice location in America, maybe Hockeytown or Lowell, Massachusetts.
Yes.
But if you could, do something, especially for like British Columbia.
Classic.
The Kowloon Classic in the parking lot.
Yes.
Parking lot. But if you could do it up in like British Columbia, I don't know, out in the forest, if you could find an area where you can put a rink down. Again, I make it easier said than done. But if you could do that and like nobody's there, I love that. Like, I think that it's pure, it's pure hockey. This is not a plug for the store Pure Hockey. It's just, talking about pure hockey in general. But again, that Tahoe game, people forget about a lot because it was COVID and it was a weird year. Bruins dominated that game, by the way.
Yes. Philly, not a good team.
No, that year was brutal. Still not very good, but they, left poor Carter Hart out to dry. And great jerseys in that game, by the way. That was reverse retro, the yellow. That was a great game. But this Winter Classic, one thing, a common tone I keep seeing being sung online and with a lot of people is the Winter Classic has sort of lost its luster. And every year it's a new thing. People go, oh, maybe if it was at a new venue, so they had it. Remember, they had it the Cotton Bowl one year. Mm-hmm. They did Predators Hurricanes. Was that last year? They did that recently.
Predators Stars was at the Cotton Bowl.
Yes, but then the Hurricanes wasn't there one in Nashville in the past couple of years, or am I like completely?
I think so. Yeah, I know Carolina's gonna have one outdoors. I think at NC State Stadium this year. So there's a few. Like they're at least trying to expand it beyond this. I'm trying to think if Fenway is the first repeat venue or not. So
I want to say it is because they didn't do Wrigley. They haven't done Buffalo again.
Yeah.
They haven't done like Citi Field or Yankee Stadium again. They had the Stadium Series stuff, but that was different. But again, I think it goes back to. There's a lot of outdoor games. There's been a lot of outdoor games. I think no matter the teams you put in it, no matter the venue, unless you're literally doing it on like the moon, which would be pretty interesting.
Sick.
That'd be pretty cool.
Let's vouch for that one.
We'll get credentialed and go for that. The expenses for that for our outlets would be just perfect, I imagine.
Yes.
But I think no matter the teams, no matter the venue, I don't think this game has the luster that it once did. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think there's that natural fatigue. Now, again, if the Bruins go out there and win in overtime or they blow out Pittsburgh, I'm sure people will have a lot more fun. It's all about
at least here.
Yes. In terms of like the viewership, will kind of depend on how many teams are sick of the Bruins being in it or Pittsburgh or what have you, teams that have been in multiple ones before. I think it's something that just comes with the territory in terms of I think the venue is the biggest thing that probably has people being like, and that's not to say that Fenway's not a great venue, but it's up there in age. It's not the most equipped one, but it's also, I think people who have probably been at either the first Winter Classic in 2010 or some of the various, I think it was the college showcases both in 2010 and 2014 and 17. I know they had college games
Frozen
there.
Fenway, you mean?
Yeah, so they had those, which again are fun. But if you're up there, I think 2017 I was up at like the Bud deck is right there. I think maybe it's a Sam Adams deck now, but high up there, high winds in the middle of winter, not entirely fun. You gotta kind of trudge through it a little bit. So I think there's some part of that. But again, I think it will all depend on what the final product is out there on the ice, right? So it's one thing if this was a game where it's a 1-0 or it's a slog or what have you, but I think we'll see how the game plays out and kind of go from there.
Actually, I'm looking at it now. Last year's Winter Classic was, I think, if I'm correct on this, because it was supposed to be 2021, ended up getting moved to last year. Blues Twins
in Minnesota.
In Minnesota, and it was like -5 degrees at puck drop, and it was the coldest game in history. Only Minnesota fans could like get up for that.
That is that's a different breed of hockey and cold.
That's not something that I'm willingly signing up for. But again, I think Fenway as a whole, I mean, I loved it in 2010, just from a TV perspective. I wasn't at that game. I was 11 years old, so I'm making you guys feel pretty old there. But I loved the venue itself. I loved back then the Winter Classic. That was the third Winter Classic, so it was like, oh my God, Boston got a Winter Classic. This is so sick. Now it's different. You know, Bruins have had a million outdoor games, and I don't know where else in Boston or New England would make for a good venue. We can joke and say Kowloon or the Frog Pond, or I'll never forget.
Not even a joke. I would say the Frog Pond.
Serious one there outside the Boston Public Library. My favorite was when there was a period right after the 2019-20 season ended, post-COVID, or like after the summer. It was like October, November, December. We were struggling to come up with topics every week because there just was nothing to talk about. No one knew when the season was going to start, whatever. And the best part was there was a rumor that got floated out there. I think it was an Elliot Friedman column or something, that the Bruins were considering, or there'd been talk that they would play their regular season home games at Fenway, which was immaculate. That was amazing to think of the idea of Fenway being the home.
Hard to believe Bruins fans did not take kindly to that.
They were not pumped. The sight lines at Fenway are not too great, and the rink itself is set up different this year. I'm interested to see what people think are going to be the best seats for this event. I can't imagine there are going to be many really good ones. Like if you're in the back of the grandstand, if you're back of the grandstands, I mean, I imagine a lot of Bruins fans got those tickets maybe for Christmas and they're excited to go. And by the way, I don't think anyone who's going to the Winter Classic thinks like, oh, we're going to see. This is going to be the best viewing experience ever. I think it's more like, oh, this is a cool
experience.
Event.
Yes,
I want to be at it. And you know what I say? Great, awesome, like perfect. That's kind of the whole point of the Winter Classic. If you want to see a game and see every little piece of it, go to a game at the Garden. This is not one of those games. It's funny. I mean, is there anywhere else in New England that would be like a place to hold a game?
I mean, Evan, we forget during those weird days of COVID, there was at one point where people said they were going to have games up in Vegas. Remember
yes,
that?
I remember that well.
It was like the most random squad. It was like the weirdest assortment of cities. It was like whether that or for like Fargo, what have you. But there was like games going to be up in Vegas. I think we should have a game out there.
It was like I remember back then it was like a college hockey tournament, like locations. It was not big time cities. But it's interesting. This year's a weird one, or not a weird one. It's pretty mainstream, but it's weird in the sense that I think there's just fatigue on both teams, and Fenway's already been done. They're changing up where the ice is, so I guess that's a good thing. And I think the overall significance of the Winter Classic, as I said kind of earlier, it's not as big a thing anymore, just given that it's happened every year. And I like that, by the way. They should have outdoor games more often. I'm not like against it. I just think I think back to when I was little and they were playing, in Buffalo or Chicago at Wrigley or Fenway in 2010. And I was like, oh my God, like this is huge. Like it's a game and it's outdoors and there's a lot of them. I'm always in favor of the Stadium Series games. They have like in warm climates. Like I think it's kind of cool to see like LA when they had their games, and I think that's the only like hot weather one that they ever did. The Cotton Bowl in Texas wasn't hot for that one. So
see how the forecast is for this game, because I think it's, again, we're looking a little bit ahead of time, but wasn't like supposed to be like 50s in the days leading up to it, which would not be great. So hopefully that does not happen.
That'd be so Bruins. The ice would be just horrendous. I believe the forecast as of now is 55 and a 50% chance, or 50% of the area, I guess, gets rain. I saw that on TikTok. That is, I guess, on little weather thing here. I guess when it says like 50%, I used to think it was 50% like 50% chance. I believe, I don't want to spread misinformation here, but I believe that just means 50% of the area gets rain.
I'm about to get rattled if that's true. Because if not, I have to log off this podcast and reevaluate some stuff.
It's like that memes is when you purposefully spread misinformation over the internet. Like that.
What are you doing, Evan?
You guys can check that, but I saw it on TikTok, so it has to be true.
It has to be. It's like Wikipedia. It's like anyone can edit anything they want, so you know you're getting the best information.
There's a kid I went to high school with in his bio. It says editor at WikiHow, and I was like, oh, so you just like edit? You just go on and Wikipedia
the most mundane things. How to
twist?
How to open a Campbell's chicken noodle soup can.
I'm a tweeter on Twitter. Yes. But at any rate, we are veering off the path here.
We certainly are.
Bad weather would not be good for this game, I don't think, for the ice and for everyone. If it's raining and 50 something degrees, I don't think people are going to love standing out in that. But jersey matchup wise, Penguins kind of look like they have the Pirates logo. It's not, anything crazy. I don't hate the jerseys. They're fine. I don't think they're like anything crazy special. And the Bruins, we've talked about this. Do you have any crazy thoughts about any of the jerseys?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're pretty solid. I think you especially look at the Bruins one. I feel like when it got announced and it's like, the graphic was just like the floating sweater, people were like, nah, it's pretty good. Like, we like the logo.
Wasn't it because it was a leaked photo from like a rack? Like it was
from like Modell's. Someone up in Everett, the Modell's, and found it in the back corner of the store or something like that. So like that doesn't help. And then you see like it when it's on like a video release and it's like just floating in the air. I think it's kind of the same thing. I felt like when the Bruins announced their sweater for 2019 for the Notre Dame game, people were like, that's pretty good, definitely different. And then they saw it on the ice, like, oh, this is sweet. I think once you see it on the ice, that's a big difference, right? And I think you even saw when like Bergeron had it, where they had like the gold socks and the whole outfit, the whole jersey, like the whole setup for it. I think that makes a world of difference. So I think it'll be one people are pretty impressed with it. But once you see it on the ice in action, I think people will be fans of it. And I also think like Pittsburgh, for as much as you can only do so much, especially as the road team, I think theirs is pretty solid too. I think it'll be a good jersey matchup.
Yeah, again, I think once you see it with the backdrop of Fenway, I think it just looks a lot better. And the jersey's grown on me. When I first saw it off the rack, I said, could have done more, maybe done a Fenway jersey or something. I don't know. I don't design the jerseys. I critique the design of the jerseys. Yes. That's how this works.
That's how we do it.
But I do think that it's grown on me as time goes along. I think once I see them step onto the ice, that I think, I'll be all in on it fully because I like it so far, but there's a little more you could like it, I guess. Penguins as a team, really tough start to the season. I remember there was some turmoil going on over there, some drama. Would have been great if they were doing like an remember the Road to the Winter Classic that HBO used to do? Those shows were got the best of John Tortorella.
Bruce Boudreau just losing his mind for week in and week out.
Yes. But it's, rough start. They've rebounded since. Sid Crosby is still Sid Crosby. Jake Gensel, Evgeny Malkin, both over a point per game. Right now as we speak, they're tied with the Rangers for third place in the Metro. I don't think they are a wagon or anything, but they're still consistently good as they have been for the last, 12, 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one thing where I think we had our predictions early on in the year, and I said this was the year that both the Capitals and the Penguins weren't going to make the playoffs. It looked good for a while, but again, we'll see what happens once we get to, March and April and where these teams are. But Pittsburgh's still a team that you look at their, the foundations of their success. It's not changing. You guys are getting older, but you're still knowing what you're going to get. Every year, it seems like you have guys that step into these roles that, whether it's because their system or the fact that they're getting minutes next to Crosby, they seem to go off. You look at last year.
Crazy how that works. You play with Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, shocking. Where you look at like last year with like Danton Heinen and Evan Rodriguez and these guys who stepped into those roles and were very effective in those spots. Just seems like, nothing's really changed with them in terms of what they're going to be, which is a tough test when you've got that stop power that is still playing at a high level. Good secondary scoring, good coach Mike Sullivan. It all kind of depends on what their goaltending situation is. I feel like that's been the main equalizer, especially once you get to the playoffs over the last couple of years. But again, teams similar to the Bruins where you don't know how much more they have left in the tank. But when you look at Bruins maybe are a special case in terms of how good they've been this year. But again, two teams that have been at the top of the Eastern Conference, top of the NHL for a decade plus, and refuse to, give away and make room for some other teams to get into the playoff picture. So
It's impressive. As you were talking, I was thinking about this, where like you think about, the Bruins became a real contender in 2007, 2008. And ever since they've been, in or around the playoffs, a player every year. They've never tanked. Penguins are the same way. And Penguins are built similarly in the sense that, they have a 1-2 punch down the middle, two of the best centers in the game, two of the best players maybe ever. And you also have, really stout defensemen. You have Chris Letang, who has kind of been their stalwart for a long time. They had Fleury in net for a while, then it switched over to, now Jari a bit. And, they've kind of struggled to find the right guy. But, a lot can be said about how good they've been for a long time. And again, they've won 3 cups. So that's not bad.
Not too shabby.
Can't hate that. As a whole, though, let's play a fun game. I just thought of off the top of my head. This is a very improvisational podcast, so we'll continue on that road. Who is the player for the Bruins that is going to be the hero in the Winter Classic? Maybe that's 2 goals. Maybe that's a couple big block shots. Maybe that's an overtime winner. Who's going to be the hero?
It's going to be. It's going to be Derek Forbort. It's going to have 6 blocks, including 2 in the final minute. Once Pittsburgh pulls their goalie, it might take whoever it's going to be, Jari or what have you, like a minute to get off the ice because of how the ice might be. But I think,
slogging along.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But final minute, I think it's going to be down to the wire. I'm going to jump ahead and say a 4-3 win for the Bruins, but I think it's going to be a 1-goal game for most of it. 2 key blocks for Forbort down the end of the game. And I'll put him as the unsung hero in this one. So I'll go with Derek Forbort.
That's a good one. I say Jake DeBrusk has 2 goals. I think DeBrusk not carries them, but I think he's impactful and good, and I think they win 5-2. I don't think this is going to be Marco Sturm. It's not going to be that level of drama, unfortunately, for all of us. But I think it's going to be a good game. Now, here's the thing. If they lose, this does not count. This is not a regulation loss at the Garden. This is just kind of separate, right?
NESN can keep that graphic going.
NESN can keep it going. Like, that's the beauty of it. They can keep that rolling, which for them, I guess, is a great thing. But as much as we say that Winter Classic has lost its luster, I'm sure when we get there,
it's still going to be a blast.
It's still going to be a blast. It's still going to be a great event. It's still going to be beautiful, whether it's raining or whatever. It's Fenway Park. I know people trash on Fenway for saying it's old and the seats are small and this and that. I'd much rather have Fenway in my city than a regular ass ballpark every day of the week. That's not even debatable in my book. So I think it'll be fun. I think the sight lines will be interesting. I think the pictures will be beautiful. I think, you wonder if this is a team bonding moment for them. They don't really need one, but maybe they have one. So interesting stuff all around. Connor, what can people look forward to from you over at Boston.com?
Yeah, great timing in that my first day at Boston.com will be at the Winter Classic, so I will be there giving, of course, you can follow me on Twitter there for my updates for it, but I'll have content out there about the game, the recap, breakdowns, all that stuff will be over at Boston.com. And again, if you follow me over there, it won't just be Bruins, it'll be all kind of the top stories that are going on in Boston sports these days, which a lot going on. Very, very busy, even if
going on.
Yeah, even if we might be starting up, with Bruins season ramping up there. Once we get to the end of the Patriots season, still plenty to cover. So you can follow me over there for all news, updates, all that good stuff. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. Conor Ryan, Evan Marinofsky, Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week and have a very happy New Year.